Hey, welcome back to Liam Locke Gaming. I'm Liam Locke, and we are here again, of course, in the Microsoft Flight Simulator, and we've got a good one today, kind of an interesting one. We are in Tokyo, Japan, and we're going to be flying today from Narita International Airport in Tokyo to Oahu, Hawaii, specifically the Daniel K. Inoue? Inoue. Oh. I'm mixing it up really bad. Inoue. Yeah, that's how it is. Specifically, the Daniel K. Inoue International Airport in Honolulu. This is a little bit of a long flight. We'll get the departure here out of Japan, and then we'll pick up the arrival into Honolulu. But if you really want to scratch your head, what's interesting about this flight is it's a little bit like flying back in time, right? It's early in the morning here in Tokyo, Japan. Probably about 5:30ish in the morning. Our scheduled flight departure today is 06:30 in the morning local time, Japanese Standard Time, which technically is January 20th, 21:30 Zulu. And the only reason I'm telling you this is because we are going to be crossing the International Date Line, and that really kind of can mess with your head as far as when you leave a particular spot and arrive in another destination. So our departure is January 20th, 2030 Zulu, which local time, since Japan Standard Time is actually Zulu time +9, is 0630 on the 21st. And our arrival in Oahu, Hawaii is January 21st, Zulu time 0350 Zulu. So in looking at Zulu time for Hawaii, it's actually -10. So -10 from January 21st to 0350 Zulu puts us in on January 20th, 1750, 550, going on 6 o'clock in the evening. So kind of crazy, right? We're actually leaving Japan the morning of the 21st and arriving in Hawaii the evening of the 20th. So we're losing an entire 24 hours, and that's what it's like to cross the International Date Line. So I thought this would be a fun flight. The plane we're flying today is the 747-800. We're flying the Japan Airlines branded aircraft, and it is in the cold and dark state here early in the morning at Narita, and we're going to walk through the startup. I'm probably not going to spend too much time talking about the steps for the cold and dark startup. We'll try and get through that quickly. We'll get our flight management computer programmed up with our flight plan, and hopefully be on our way here on time. Hey, really good news too. In fact, you can't tell yet, but as soon as it becomes light out this morning, I fixed the cloud problem. Went back and forth and finally got to the bottom of that cloud color flashing that was going on. Very bizarre. But we've got that taken care of, and in case you're curious, just a news flash for you. If you're using Active Sky build 7205, yeah, get rid of it. You go back, go forward, but get off of 7205. That's ultimately what it came down to. But let's get started here, get this flight on the road. Pretty dark in the aircraft, a little hard to see. It's especially hard for me to see this dark setting on the screen. It's probably easier for you to see because I've got all these lights shining on me. But what we want to do is go ahead and get the aircraft started up right away. So first order of business, get our battery turned on here inside the aircraft. We already have ground power hooked up to the airplane. We've got our air conditioning hooked up to the aircraft. We get our standby power switched from off to auto. Interesting starting up the aircraft in a dark setting, because you can see very clearly some of the instrumentation is lighting up as we go through the startup procedure. So we've got that done already. I want to get my checklist up on the screen. We need to spot check some settings. So before we do that, since it is dark, you can see that the dome lights are already up to half. If this is still too dark for us, we can actually turn this up to make it a little brighter setting, make it a little easier to see the instrumentation inside the cockpit. We want to check our hydraulic pumps. They're all in off position. That looks good. Wipers, of course, here are off. From there, we want to go down, spot check our alternate flaps. The alternate flaps are off. Nothing's illuminated here. Gear is down. We want to make sure that the flap lever agrees. So if we just look down here, flaps are in the up retracted position, and that agrees with what we're seeing here on the ECAM, so we're good to go there. So at this point, we'll go back up top, make sure all our bus tie switches are auto. Good shape, and now we're ready to go to external power. All I do is I turn on external power 1. We're going to proceed from here. Go ahead and get our navigation lights turned on. And since it is dark outside, just to make the plane a little easier to see outside, I'm going to turn on the wing light and the logo light, and that illuminates the tail and the wing, although not very much, not so that it makes it too much more visible, but if you take a look at it, you can see that the logo on the tail fin is illuminated. And if we look down here at the wing light, we've got these little lights that shine out over the wing. So go ahead and continue with our startup procedure. We want to get our inertial reference units turned on. Check our status page. We've got a bunch of normal warnings, which we expect as we're starting up the aircraft. Just nothing to be too concerned about there yet. We need to look at our status panel. Status looks good. Crew oxygen pressure is good to go. Hydraulic quantity is where it's supposed to be. Colors are all white, so everything is normal there. Take a quick look at the engine. Oil quantity looks good. Nothing to be concerned about there. Parking brake we're going to leave off for the time being. Going to go ahead and get our GSX services going. So we'll call for catering. And we're going to call for refueling. Go up here and look at the overhead panel. All the guards are closed. Nothing to change up here, so we're happy with those settings. We want to go down and start working on the flight management computer. But we're going to do it from this angle. I just find it's a little easier to look at, and that way you can kind of see the navigation display build as we work through programming the flight management computer. So FMC for flight management computer, we are in the 747-800. All of this looks normal. We want to do our inertial reference position. 2043 time, 2043 Zulu is our current time at the gate. We're going to go ahead and pick our present GPS position. Go ahead and drop that in here. Put our reference airport in place. Tokyo Narita International Airport is RJAA. Go to our route screen, same thing, put in our origin. And the Honolulu International Airport is PHNL. Flight number is 748. That's good. We'll go to departure arrival. Going to pick our departure information. So today, departing out of Narita. Okay, we've got the catering truck is at the aircraft. we're situated. Looking at our flight plan today, so here's our flight plan, leaving Narita, going to Honolulu, Oahu, Hawaii. Specifically, the runway, so we're departing on 34 left using the Suns 1 SID, and our transition waypoint will be the Suns waypoint. And then this is the remaining part of our flight plan here, and when we get to Oahu, we'll be landing ILS approach onto runway 4 right. So we'll look at our departures for Narita. We said 34 left, using the Suns 1 SID. It automatically is going to pick the Suns waypoint. There are no additional transitions for us to pick from. We'll go straight to route now, go to next page, and put in the remaining part of our flight plan from the transition waypoint. And at the Dano waypoint is where we start our transition onto our star, which is going to be Kalani 2 to runway 4 right. So we'll go back to departure arrival and pick our arrival information for Oahu. And we want ILS 4 right, and I know that we're using Z, and I can show you that here. Just to show you our trip today. So here we have our Navigraph chart. So departing from Japan, heading out over nothing but large ocean, vast ocean, to Hawaii right here, and you can see the west coast of the United States over here. I always thought that the trip from Japan to Hawaii was a little more southerly than it is. I mean, it's almost straight easterly across the ocean. For whatever reason, I never envisioned it quite like that, but that's apparently what it is. So we're talking about the arrival. I want to go up here and just bring up the arrival. I had already pulled a chart for ILS-Z, and this is kind of cool. ILS-Z for runway 4 right. So we can see that here from Dano, which is going to be this last little junction here, we're going to connect up right to Derby, and then Derby is going to be our that's our initial approach fix heading into runway 4 right. So this here is what we're doing. Go back into the cockpit. We want to pick our star of Kalani 2. And from Kalani 2, our transition point is going to be Dano. We can go out here and take a look at our legs and make sure we don't have any discontinuities. Dano. We need to look here at the Kalani 2 approach. If you look back over here at the approach chart for the Kalani 2 approach, So Dano is our transition, and then it shows Denkel, Auchi, and Kalani to Rabs, and ultimately Makoa. So this all looks correct. And then from Makoa, we're going to have our arrival into Honolulu, Oahu. Oh, I didn't pick the runway. Like, something's weird here. So ILS, right, 4 right. Kalani 2 is the star. Our transition is Derby. And now we'll go back to legs, and that additional information should be at the end of our route. Rabs. From Makoa, Makoa being the last part of the Kalani 2 star, we want to go straight from there to Derby. That completes our flight plan. Go ahead and execute this, get it set up. Yep, we got the fuel truck in position. Let's come back to that here in just a moment, get the fuel going. That's probably a good thing because we were still on a nav map. Probably made it a little hard for you to see what I was doing on the flight management computer. We're going back in. We got the fuel truck here. We want to get him situated. And we need to set up our payload. Going back here and taking out another look at our flight plan. We can see for today our zero fuel weight, 260.2 is our estimate. And if we go up to the top here, this is where I would typically get this information from. Estimated zero fuel weight, 260,000 kilograms, or 260.2 metric tons. So we want to put that in here for zero fuel weight. That's going to auto-distribute our passengers and our cargo. From here, we want to also get our block fuel at 66.0 metric tons. We're going to go back here, select fuel. 66.0 metric tons of fuel. We'll make that change. The fuel truck's going to get us loaded up. He'll be on his way. So we're taking on 34.5% fuel load for this trip today to Hawaii. And what we were starting to show before we diverted here just to get our payload set up was our flight plan, looking at it from the plan view on the navigation display. So I've got the plan view up. Zoom in a little bit tighter here for this initial takeoff. So what you can see is from the runway's heading at 336 degrees for runway 34 left. We're going to take off from 34 left, straight out and climb, and then come back around in a loop back towards this VOR at the airport, and then back out on our way. If we zoom forward here a couple of steps, so we go out, we go around, come back to the airport, and then we start heading across the ocean here, pretty much an easterly direction. And there is Dano, and I'll zoom out here just a little bit. Dano, Denkel, Auchi, Kalani into Rabs, and here we start to get into the airport. So from Makoa is the last waypoint on our star, and then we fly into Derby for our initial approach fix and down to the runway. So pretty tight little left-hand corner there, and start descending immediately for the runway. We do have some altitude and speed constraints that are already programmed for us. And you can see those here on the flight management computer. So we need to make sure that we are pretty close to those altitudes as we cross those waypoints, so that we're in a good position to descend down to the runway and not have to do a go-around. So that looks pretty good. We'll go back to map mode. Continue with our startup here. We want to go to our performance initialization, call back our zero fuel weight. We dumped in at 260.2, put that in here. Reserves fuel, according to the flight plan, is going to be about 30 minutes to divert to our alternate airport and 30 minutes of reserve fuel, so 8.2, or actually 8.3 metric tons of reserve. Cruise altitude today is ultimately going to be 39,000. We have one step climb over the ocean. So flight level 390. Cost index of 25. And already we're getting the insufficient fuel notification, which is interesting. We're going to disregard that just for a moment. Actually, we can look at it. So it's predicting that by time we get to Honolulu, that our fuel remaining will be 6.4. Now I flew this once before, and I found that this number wasn't entirely accurate, and I don't know if that's a problem with the flight management computer, but it should be looking at our cost index and performance of the aircraft and headwinds and tailwinds, and it doesn't like the number, so I'm not too concerned about it. We're going to leave it as it is for the moment. In fact, what I'm going to do, rather than ignore it, the off chance that the flight management computer is actually correct, is I'm going to take on a little bit more fuel, which we can do. I need to have reserve of, I said 8.3, I believe it was. So we want to put on another at least 2 metric tons of fuel. And we're just playing it safe. So we're going to take this up to 68. And now we'll go back and take a look at, it said 7.9. So that's, I don't think this is going to be a problem, but again, I'm going to satisfy the flight management computer and take on just a little bit more fuel. I'm going to take on another metric ton of fuel. We'll go from there. 69. Okay. So now we're at 8.8, and that's absolutely going to give us our reserve. I bet what we'll find is when we actually arrive in Honolulu, that this number is going to be a little bit higher than what we're actually seeing here. We're probably going to have plenty of extra fuel, but better to be safe than sorry. I certainly don't want to put it down in the ocean anywhere or try to divert with not a lot of options over the water. So I'm okay with this. We're going to press on here. Back to our knit reference. Look at our thrust limits. So for load, we were, I believe, just over 50%. You can go back and look at payload. So the aircraft is 53.3% loaded. We have less than 50% our fuel capacity on board. So we're a little light. We're in good shape. If we looked at the flight plan, you would see that our estimated takeoff weight is 325,000 kilograms, and our maximum landing weight is 312,000 kilograms. So we're would be a little heavy to turn around and come back immediately, but we probably burn off a fair amount of fuel. We could circle and come down, or if we had an emergency, we're not that much heavier than our maximum landing weight, so that would be kind of a decision that we could make. So I'm not too concerned there. We're gonna continue on. Plus, this is just a flight simulator, right? But you know, you're trying to follow and learn the rules of flying something this large. But we were primarily concerned with 50% weight. I'm going to do a derated takeoff of takeoff 2, TO2. We'll go back into our knit reference, look at our thrust limit, and we're going to say 20% derated takeoff. Now we can go back to our takeoff settings. We'll do a standard flaps 10 takeoff. Recall our center of gravity from the payload, which was 22%. And that's going to give us our V1, V rotate, and V2 speeds. We'll make a note of those. We have 149 V1, 156 will rotate, and then 169 for V2. This is good. So just spot checking my checklist. We did our flight management programming, put in our position information, our departure, our route information. We did our legs, set up our payload, did our performance initialization. And that is it. And we've activated our, oh, not entirely. We need to also make sure that we click on the right select buttons for V1, VR, and V2 to put those numbers on the speed tape. Now they're set to go, so we've completed our flight management computer programming. Go back to legs here and continue with our startup checklist. Alright, so electric engine controls normal, all good to go. Standby power is in auto, yep. Utility switches are good. Battery switches on, yes. Bus tie switches are auto. Generator controls all on. Generator disconnect drive lights are illuminated. We don't need to start the APU quite yet. All of our hydraulic demand pump switches here are off. The engine pump switches are on. I'm going to get our emergency lights turned or armed. And, captain's audio, observer audio is in the normal position. Server interphone is off. Nothing else is active. All of our fire suppression switches are in the correct position. Cargo fire, nothing's illuminated. We haven't discharged any of our fire suppressant. Engines, jettisons, all in the correct position. All of our fuel pump switches remain off for the time being. We're not going to make any changes there. We will get our window heat turned on. Anti-ice is all set for auto right now. We won't be needing any of that. Our lights here are situated now. Since it is a little dark in a cockpit, if we wanted to, we could start to turn on some of the console lights. For example, we have the glare shield panel and flood. So if we turn up the center knob here, we won't go quite that high. This is going to give us the lighting here above this particular panel, our glare shield. And we're going to do the same for all the panels until it becomes daylight outside. And then we can also turn the back knob to get the backlit indicators, or the lighting behind the labels on the controls lit up. So we'll do that as well. And here's for our aisle stand. We'll go ahead and turn on that floodlight as well. Kind of a low level. Go to about 12 o'clock with the backlit labeling. We don't need any of our taxi lights turned on quite yet. Reserve fuel is off. None of this stuff is active. Passenger oxygen guard is closed. Our yaw dampers should be on, and they are. We're all no indications here. We are in the normal position. This is for our cabin altitude control, pressurization. Look at our environmental control system. So it's set for auto right now. Our fan recirculations are on. We don't have APU yet, so we don't have any bleed pressure. So we have a system fault here, and none of our packs are turned on. We can leave those as they are for the time being. We did already turn on the navigation light, wing light, and the logo light. None of the other lights need to be turned on at this time. Jump down here to the first officer's seat. I'm going to go ahead and get the flight director turned on. We don't have any settings that we need to apply to the navigation display or the primary flight display from the EPIS panel at this time. Those are fine. I want to go over here and get the panel floodlight turned on, probably about, it's about 10 o'clock. And we'll get the back illumination spun up. Inboard and outboard displays are visible. Flight director is set to the right for the first officer. EIU, our IRS, and air data information is all auto, which is correct. Our inboard display is the multifunction display. That's where that should be. We verified these settings were off. They should still be off. For auto brakes today, we want to go ahead and arm that for the rejected takeoff. Looking at our ground proximity, we have our glide slope inhibit, flaps override, gear override, and our terrain override are all off, which is correct. We'll go down to the aft pedestal here. So left radio is on, our observer radio is on, and our right radio is turned on. For audio controls, we'll go ahead and... Actually, I'm not going to do that today. We're not really using the radios. We're not going to be using air traffic control. We will be using the captain's radio to get ATIS information. So I'll go ahead and activate that now for his left side. Confirm that the weather panel, it's hard to tell, but these buttons here are to press the weather. This would be weather plus turbulence, weather, auto. We're not doing anything with the tilt because it's set for auto, which is the way we like it. Go ahead and set our transponder and put this in the standby position, or actually the expander position. And for takeoff, we want to be looking specifically at aircraft above us, so I'll go ahead and set this for above right now. Then from here, we're going to go to the captain's side. Similar setups for him. So flight director turned on. For the EFIS control, I do want to go ahead and activate the traffic notification so we can see on navigation display that TCAS is currently in the off position. And we get our arc radial bands. Go ahead and get captain's floodlights turned on here a little bit, again like 10 or 11 o'clock. Put the backlighting for the labeling up till about 12 o'clock. It's good to go. The controls here on this side, we look at it a little easier to see if we look over this way. So captain side is left, left, and then auto, auto, auto. So those are set normally. The inboard display is set for multifunction display, which is correct. We've got one more check. We want to verify that our standby altimeter here is set correctly. We haven't programmed in our barometric pressure yet, so it's currently at its default of 29.92. That is fine. One thing we didn't check up here on the MCP, auto throttle is armed. Yep. Bank limit is set to auto. Autopilot disengage bar is in the up position. And our heading should be set to the direction of the runway, so 34 left. We said it was 336. Bouncing all over the place here. So that is now set. Verify on our primary flight display that we do have the toga indications on our flight management annunciator. So the auto throttle section over here should be blank, and our roll and pitch mode, roll and pitch, should be toga. Flight director indicates that it is active, so those are good indications. So we're going to look at our flight controls and make sure that our speed brake lever is in the down position, and it is. Our throttle controls are idle, reverse is down. We have no flap set. Currently flaps are retracted. We'll go ahead and set our parking brake right now. We can see that we don't have any hydraulic pressure on the brake system, so we get the brake source warning indicator. We'll be fixing that here in a moment. Fuel cutoff switches are in the cutoff position, is good. No fire warnings at the end of the switches. These will be illuminated red, they're not. Stabilizer trim cutout switches, our guards are closed. All looks good, so we are ready to start boarding passengers. Actually, I'm going to go with... We would have done that by now already. We're going to skip the GSX part of the process because we want to get this show on the road. So we're about to do pushback. We need to get the APU started. We'll need that to start up the engines. APU to the on position. Hold start here for a second. Let that go. Give the APU a minute or two here to get fired up. There's one section here on my checklist I think is a little bit out of order. While that's getting started up, let's just go back down to the MCP. What we also need to set up here, because it's going to be on our pre-flight checklist, is our speed. And the speed we're going to set to our V2 speed assignment, which was 169 knots. And then what is going to be our initial altitude as we depart, and we do have some restrictions. If we look at our flight plan, We've got to be below 7,000 feet as we depart Narita at this waypoint D018I. I was going to say T, it's an I. So we'll we'll go as if we're cleared initially for an altitude of 7,000 on departure. Alright, so now that's in place. We can jump back up, check the status of the APU. So I do have the available lights, indicates the APU is running. We can spot check that down on the status page as well and see that the APU is in fact running. We want to get off external power. We're going to fire up APU generator 1, generator 2. We want to go over here to our packs. Now that we've got APU bleed pressure, go ahead and turn on all 3 packs. And I like to go down and take a look at our environmental system. So go to synoptics here, go to environmental control system. 24 degrees Celsius is the master temperature that we've got set for the flight deck and the cabins. And we can see that it's a little chilly there in the middle of the aircraft, but those temperatures are starting to go up right now. APU is providing bleed pressure to the 3 packs. And from here, we're going to do pre-flight checklist. So we're going with oxygen tested 100%. Yes, good to go. Flight instruments heading 336 degrees is the heading of the runway. Altimeter, we have not done that yet, so let's go ahead and get that information from ATIS for the airport.
Narita Airport information, November, 2122 Puma, wind 327 at 7. Visibility greater than 20 miles. Sky conditions, clouds at 3,000. Temperature 9er, dew point -3. Altimeter 3009er. ILS, runway 34 right and ILS, runway 34 left in use. Landing and departing runway 34 right and runway 34 left. CFR aircraft stay direction of flight. All aircraft reach-back hold short instructions. Advise controller on initial contact you have November. Narita Airport information, November.
Okay, so we have November. We have November. Let's go back. We've got confirmation that runway 34 left and 34 right are active and in use for departures and landing. We want to put in our altimeter setting of 3009. And that matches with our altitude level here at the airport elevation, so that is good, 30.09. Now we can go back and finish up our checklist. Altimeter 3009 set, parking brake is set, fuel cutoff switches are in the cutoff, control switches are in a cutoff position, checklist is complete. We're going to go back up to the MCP. We're just about ready. We're going to go ahead and arm the lateral navigation and the vertical navigation. Get those armed and ready to go. We're going to go with taxi and takeoff briefing is complete, although we haven't given one. But I think we've got the information pretty well in hand, and I'm pretty sure you're squared away as well. We want to get the exterior doors closed up now that we've got everybody on board and the cargo and passengers' luggage is loaded. And we're just going to do the shortcut. We'll do a close all. Spot check outside. Cargo doors are starting to close up. And our jetway door and aircraft will be closing up inside here, and then we'll disconnect the jetway as well. doors are all closed. We're going to go ahead and arm the doors. And while we're there, we should go back and get our ground connections disconnected. So we're going to drop the power. We're going to release the air conditioning unit now that we're running on bleed pressure. Go ahead and request that the jetway be removed from the aircraft. So there goes the jetway disconnecting. Just about ready for pushback. Go ahead and get the hydraulic system on 4 and 1 set to auxiliary, so they're going to be powered by the electricity being generated by the APU currently. We'll go ahead and get 2 and 3 set for auto. Take a look at our fuel load. So we're looking at the distribution of fuel. We don't have any fuel in the center tank, so we don't need those center pumps to be turned on. We do have this fuel tank engine warning notification. So what we need to look at is the total fuel between main and reserve 1. So 16, what does that take us to? 16, 17.3 versus 17.2. So it's pretty fairly distributed between the main 2, main 3, main 4, and the reserve tanks. So we don't need the crossfeed valves on. So from here we're going to go up. We're going to go ahead and turn on our fuel pumps in main 1, 2, 3, and 4. We don't need these overrides turned on because of the amount of fuel we have distributed between the tanks. And we need to turn off these crossfeeds for 1 and 4. That will clear the error message that we have or had for the fuel tank engine. So that's gone. All looks good here. You can see here are the crossfeed valves that we just cut off. Since we're getting ready to start the engines momentarily, we'll go ahead and put our beacon down into the both positions so the upper and lower beacons start flashing, letting the ground crew know that engines are going to be starting up here momentarily. Do one more last check of our status page. So we only have one page of warnings. These are all pretty obvious. Engines need to be started. TCAS is currently off. We get the EFIS control on the right side warning because we're manually controlling that EFIS display pad from the right CDU, so that is a normal message for us. Go ahead and set our stabilizer trim for takeoff. You can see stabilizer trim is going to be 6.5 for takeoff. We have that up here on the main ECAS display. It's currently at 6. So we're going to use our control stick and bring that up to 6.5. We'll confirm we have no rudder trim. Set to 0 is perfect. And we can see by the yoke that we have no aileron trim, so it's zeroed out. And now we'll do our before start checklist. So before start, flight deck doors closed and locked, check. Passenger signs are not set yet. We'll go down here and get our seatbelt signs turned on. Yes, MCP V2 is 169 knots, heading of 336 degrees, runway course heading. Our altimeter 3009, check. Takeoff speeds, V1 149 knots, V rotate is 156 knots, and our V2 is 169 knots, check. CDU pre-flight has been completed. Our trim is 6.5 and 0 aileron and 0 rudder. Not sure what the order of those are, but that's what those mean basically. So check, that is good. Taxi and takeoff briefing, yeah. Still working on that one. We'll come back to that. That's a work in progress. Good to go. Beacon lights on both. Checklist is complete. Our robot is happy. Alright, let's get the wheel chocks removed from the aircraft. Spot check our time. 21:31. Almost perfect timing. We're getting ready to push back from the gate, and that is what we were looking for. 21:30. Wheel chocks removed. And we'll request pushback. Now, before we do that, and this always kind of happens to me, we need to take a quick look at the airport. Figure out where we're going. So I'm bringing up the airport information. Let me just show this to you. So here we're looking at the airport diagram for Narita. We're currently parked at gate 22, which is pretty much where you see this pink arrow at the main terminal. The runway we're taking off from today is 34 left, so 34 left is down here. We're going to be taxiing, basically we're going to back out and put the tail to the left, nose to the right. Let's indicate here, nose right, tail left. And we're going to make our way out through this little opening W6 to the A taxiway and go all the way down the A taxiway to A9. And at A9, we're going to hop on the 34 left because there's a little bit of a leadway here that we can get in position. And that is the correct course for us. And at this particular airport, they do have some additional warnings for 747-800 aircraft. If we look at their diagram, they basically show us areas permitted for 747-800 to taxi on. It's all these green taxiways. So we're here. So cutting across immediately and going to taxiway A is perfectly acceptable for us to do. Coming out here at A9, getting onto the runway, again, all acceptable. So we're safe with that course of action. So now we have the information that we require, and we can begin to work our pushback. So 21:35, going on 21:35, it is 35 now. So we're 5 minutes behind schedule with our pushback.
Hello, Captain. We're ready for pushback. Locking gear.
We said nose right, tail left.
Departure check completed. Bypass pin inserted. Release parking brakes. Commencing push. All engines clear. Start at will.
cleared to go ahead and start up our engines. Starting engine 4. One thing we need to do is turn off 2 of our packs so that we get adequate bleed pressure to start up the engines. And we'll bring up our engine status page here, and we can see that engine 4 is in auto start mode. We want to wait till this says running. Oh. So we have running. We're going to start engine 1. Starting engine 1. Auto start commencing on engine 1. Looks like we are just about in position, so we're going to go ahead and have them stop here.
Set mark to brakes.
Waiting your confirmation for good engine start.
So they're waiting for us to give them confirmation on the engine starts. Engine 1 is just about started up. Alright, engine 1 is running. Starting engine 2 and 3. Engine 2 is running, engine 3 is running, so we have a good start on all the engines. We'll need to provide confirmation that we have a good startup to the grounds crew. You can take a look at our electric page, and you'll see that the engines are now providing power to the aircraft. We no longer require the APU. Likewise, our bleed pressure is coming from the engines. We can turn off the APU, so we're going to take care of that now.
Tow truck disconnected. Bypass pin removed.
Go ahead and get packs 1 and 2 turned back on again. With the engine started, we can put our hydraulic pumps to the auto position for systems 4 and 1. So 4 to auto, 1 to auto. No anti-ice requirements.
Left is clear. Right is clear.
We've got confirmation from ground crew that the equipment is clearing or clear. Right is clear, left is clear. We'll go ahead and set our flaps for departure, which is going to be flaps 10. Let's go actually to this view. So flaps 10. So the flap lever go to the 10 position, and our ECAS page here shows 10. Flaps are extending. Go back to our flight control display. Flight controls. Do a quick check of our flight controls. Left aileron. Right aileron. Elevator down. Elevator up. Rudder left, rudder right. Flight controls check out are good. We don't need this anymore. Just set our transponder. It's already in expander mode. We don't need to change that. However, this airport likely tracks aircraft on the ground due to its sheer size. So we can go and set it for TA. So TA only. Just spot check our alerts. So we expect the EFIS control right to be up here. We have no other alerts to be concerned about at this point. So that is good to go. Preparing for taxi. We'll go ahead and turn on our taxi lights and our runway turning lights. And we will do our before taxi checklist. We expect this, so this is not a concern. Anti-ice off. Recall checked. Auto brake is set for RTO. Check. Flight controls checked. Yes. Ground equipment clear. Check. Checklist is complete. And now we want to make our way down to runway 34 left. Go up here, and I like to zoom in just a little bit, make it easier to read the runway signs. And we're going to do a brake check also as soon as we start getting aircraft rolling. So, brake check. Brakes are good. About the taxiway A here. So here's taxiway A. We're going to go to the left. all over the taxiway here. It's got to be my vantage point here. I'm not using a good indication. So I'm using the EZ-Dot camera now, and it's changed my eye perspective looking out the window, and where I used to keep the center line on the aircraft apparently is not the correct line anymore. So we've got the light there shining out the front of the aircraft, so I can kind of see now that my center line for the taxiway really needs to come more down right about here where it is now. So let's just look outside and see where we are. So that's a better positioning on the taxiway. So watching our speed, we're at 21 knots ground speed. Making our way down to, we said A9 was going to be our entryway onto the runway. All our instruments look good. Everything appears to be set and ready for takeoff. So, does that say A9 right there? No, that is not A9. We'll keep on going. Sorry, I was just bringing up my map display. I know that A9 is virtually all the way down this taxiway, second right-hand turn from the end. We've got a sign there, that's not it. These runway markings actually say this is A10. According to the airport chart, this is A9. But it doesn't matter. A9, A10, either one works and gets us there.
Approaching 3-4 left.
We're going to hold up here right at the hold marker. We've got a couple things we need to take care of real quick. Alright, so we'll do a quick notify of the crew that we're getting ready to take off. We'll do our before takeoff checklist. Flaps are currently set to 10. Checklist is complete. Get our strobe light turned on, get our takeoff, our landing lights all turned on. Our transponder set for TARA. We are pointed in the above position. So above. Heading at 336, that's the direction we're going to be turning, so we're going to go ahead and make our way out onto the runway. Assume that we are cleared for takeoff.
runway 34 left.
So we're just about lined up with the runway 336. There we go. We're going to go ahead and throttle up to about 45%, get the airplane going. Going to hit our chrono timer. Airspeed's alive, and we're going to go toga.
knots.
80 knots. V1.
Rotate.
Rotate.
V2. Positive rate of climb.
Gear up. Go over here to engage autopilot. Watch our airspeed. Jump outside here real quick. Take a look at our departure. And it is a beautiful morning in Japan. Climbing up through 2,000 feet. Speed is still looking good. Bring our flaps in one position. Bring our flaps in another position. Bring our flaps all the way in. Go and put our seat belts in the auto position so we don't forget about those this time. Gear is up so we can turn off our taxi lights as well as our runway turn-off lights can be turned off at this time. We'll do our after takeoff checklist. Landing gear up, flaps are retracted, checklist is complete. So looking pretty good. Recall on our flight plan and our SID departing out of Narita, we're actually going to be coming back around towards the airport. You can see the airport back over here to the right. We're going to continue our bank around, heading back towards the airport. Now I had a problem last time where it missed the turn, so I want to make sure that I'm not going to do that this time. Let me take a look at our legs here, because I can see that it's already starting to act a little funky. So that turn, I guess it was going a little wide, and the plane was acting as if it had missed its waypoint. So here we just barely hit that waypoint. We got it programmed in time, and now the aircraft's heading for its next waypoint. So looks like that problem has been averted, which is good. Oh, we got a beautiful sight outside. Start to see the sun there over the clouds. That's cool. That's a great shot. So coming back around for the airport. Here's the airport. Back over here. We took off from 34 left. That's this runway right here. And I just want to make note, look at the clouds. Finally, the flash is gone. I thought there I was going to start to have epileptic seizures with all the flashing of the clouds that was going on in my simulator. It's a beautiful sight to see them stable in one shade of gray. Better check. We're coming around pretty hard here. I want to make sure that we're not going to miss a waypoint again. So the plane is adjusting right now. You can see down here on the navigation display, it's trying to follow the track, swinging those corners a little wide. Our next waypoint is going to be 3, just under. Oh, there's Narita it's heading for right now. Rousey is going to be our next waypoint. We can actually start going there, which is what it should be doing. No, it looks like it's going to mess up here. Let's go to Rousey. Because I don't want it trying to turn around again. So Rousey should be the next waypoint. At this point, we should be climbing. And I've got the... so let's go ahead and get up to our cruising altitude, our initial cruising altitude of 37,000 feet. We'll start our ascent to cruising altitude. And while that is starting, I want to bring up the SID, look at our departure here out of Narita. So our SID, do the overlay here. And I can show that to you. So here we just left Narita. We're flying out, still our SID. Rousey, Suns is our transition to once we engage our flight plan. Looks like we have to be above 7,000 by Rousey. That won't be a problem. And we want to be above flight level 190 or 19,000 feet by the time we reach Suns. I don't imagine that's going to be a problem either. Spot check that. So getting ready to cross through 10,000 feet. 10,000 feet, we can go ahead and turn off our landing lights. I'm going to go ahead and turn the dome lights out as well. We don't need those to be on right now. We do want this overhead panel to be illuminated though. It's still a little dark inside the cockpit, so I'm going to turn up this panel light switch. That's a little better. Just spot check our instrumentation down here. Looks good. We can see everything. It is a beautiful morning to be leaving out of Japan. We have pretty clear weather. I really am digging the clouds. I love not having the clouds flash. This is so great. Love the effect of going into the clouds. Oh, there it goes. So here we are on our departure out of Japan, looking at the Navigraph map, and we have got a long way to go right now. Just zoom out here a little bit. So there you go. We're just at the start, climbing up to 37,000 feet. We'll then have a follow-on climb up to 39,000 feet for our cruise here over the ocean. The water looks beautiful. The sun shining off the water looks fantastic. On our way to Oahu, Hawaii, we're going to be landing at Honolulu International Airport. And that's it. By the time we pull into Oahu, it's going to be, the sun should be setting. Hopefully it won't be completely dark, but we ought to have a beautiful arrival into Oahu. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you for watching the first leg of this flight from Tokyo, Japan to Oahu. I hope you'll come back and watch the second leg. If you like this video, please click the thumbs up. I do appreciate it. And if you want to see more of these, click that subscribe button. I'm looking forward to making some more. And if anything interesting or eventful should happen on the way, I'll be sure to come back and show that to you as well. But we'll probably cruise on our way to Oahu till we get to about 250, maybe 200 nautical miles away from the airport, and come back and we will walk through the descent and landing at Oahu. But thank you very much for watching. I'm Liam Locke. This is Liam Locke Gaming, and we'll see you on the next leg. Thanks. Bye.